But anyway, so the point is that it's important to empower people to make a decision about what the best physical arrangement is in a given set of circumstances, as opposed to, this is where followership and leadership blend. You have to be willing to walk into a room and say, even if I'm the person who is here doing the class, you have to be willing to say, could we change this up a little bit because it's difficult for me to see when so-and-so's speaking, et cetera, et cetera. Do you see what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. You're not saying, I want this changed. You're not doing a command and control takeover. You're basically just saying, how about this for an idea? Now, occasionally you'll run into somebody who is really Teutonic about it all and is going to say, no, it's staying the way it is, you know, get in a row, that's it. Well, then you know who you're dealing with, don't you? You've got a very good sense of who you're dealing with. What else is wrong with this room? From a leadership perspective, think about it for a minute. Yeah?
Well, there's clearly a distinguished spot for whoever's in charge.
Absolutely, absolutely. I get to be in front, right? Okay? So what privileges me to have this position? This automatically sets up the relationship that you are the recipients and I am the person who is delivering. So what that means is we do not have any kind of capacity for a peer relationship or a give and take. There's no, now everybody understands when you walk into a class and you have a professor and you have students that the professor should know more about a given subject in the whole. But that doesn't mean that the professor knows all. Nor does it mean that you may not have a particular piece of knowledge or a particular perspective that provides insight that's far superior to anything the professor may say during the entire semester. It could occur, and it does occur. But if it's set up like this, how inviting is it for you to contribute that? Not terribly. And this is actually a modern thought about classrooms because at least the things are movable. But they're still designed, you know, in these rectangular forms and so on and so forth. So, and you know, then of course you have the thing where people say, okay, well let's make circles, you know, that sort of thing. Which for everybody sort of feels like kindergarten, you know? It's that sort of let's all circle up and read Goodnight Moon or whatever. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, but I understand completely what you're saying because I think what we try to do with the Energy Fellows program is empower you to feel like you're the problem solvers. And by having this, it automatically requires you to be extra bold to be empowered. But I'm wondering, are you going to get to what an ideal setup would look like? Is that the next?
I might get there.
Okay, good.
I just may happen.
I'm thinking, I don't know.
Yeah, I might get there.
I'm thinking about our circles that we did in the last class.
In truth, one of the things that I think is ideal is when you set up a situation in which you make it clear to everybody that how it is structured is something they should think about. On a given day, it could very well be that this is the best arrangement. Now, what I would do is say, put it in a V so that you don't have the problem you got of not being able to see over here. Do you see what I mean? So you always can see each other, but you might have one of you sit in here because you're the person who is doing the leading of any given discussion on that particular day, you know? But you want to always set things up. There is something wonderful in the way birds, you know, set up for migration. That whole V formation is a very useful one. And there's a reason that, never mind the aeronautical reasons for it, you know, in terms of laminar flow and all of those kind of physics reasons, but from the perspective of visual acuity, there's a reason that pilots use the same kind of thing, you know, because it's very useful to have the capacity to see, you know, to move out from this direction, and you've got better visibility for a larger group of individuals, you know. So I would say that if you're going to set things up in some kind of fashion, that's probably one of the better ways to go, is with these V shapes kind of things, as opposed to circles. Circles feel, they feel too forced sometimes in terms of shaping a discussion. They can feel very forced because what they feel like is, oh, we're now all going to work at being equal. You know, we're all going to be, and now let's sing Kumbaya. You know, what we have to recognize about leadership is that organizations themselves have many different forms. And I'm going to talk about a couple of different kinds of organizations, and I'll use academia as a good example of this. In academia, we have two very vibrant organizational forms, and I'm talking about large-scale organizations now. Okay, when you talk about organizations, you know, in communication studies, what you talk about is you talk about the interpersonal, which is obviously 1 or 2, 3 at the most, generally 1-to-1. You talk about small group, large group, and so on. But when you get into organizational studies, you're really talking about groups in terms of the thousands. So the university is a medium-large organization. At the administrative level, it is extremely hierarchical. You know, if you look at an org chart, what you're going to see is the president, and then you're going to see reporting lines down to vice presidents, and then you're going to see reporting lines, and you're going to see the provost and vice president for academic affairs as the first among equals because he has the title provost and vice president. And then you're going to see vice provosts, and then you're going to, you know, and the list goes on, okay? But it's all this, we all know what that looks like, right? You know, it's all very direct lines, and then they have the dotted line relationships and all of that sort of thing. I really want to know what it means to have a dotted line relationship with someone. I think it's probably like an ex-husband, you know what I mean? I think that's probably what that means, but it's kind of a weird thing in terms of human interaction. You know, how do people behave on a human level when they say, well, my relationship is a dotted line? But these are things that organizational studies people do in order to make sense of something. Now, when you look at the other part of the institution, which is, and I'm talking about the continual residence, you guys are transients, okay? You are. That's just the facts. You come here for a given period of time. You planned on 4, right? You're maybe hitting 5, but whatever, that's okay. See, I remember these things. But the fact of the matter is that you really are. You're transients. So while you are the most important of transients while you are here, you are deliberately designed to be that. What we don't want you to do is to come and stay forever. Unless you stay forever because you begin to morph into yet another format, you know, of engagement. Then that's a perfectly reasonable thing. So, in fact, what happens when you've got the people who are the residents, and let's talk about faculty and professional staff, okay? By professional staff, that designation is used, and I think it's an unfortunate designation, frankly, because what it generally means is somebody who's in a position where they're not faculty, but they're doing work that is on a par in terms of its professional significance, the credentials you have to do it, and so on and so forth. So what they tend to do then is to have people who are just called staff. They don't say unprofessional staff, because that, of course, would be unkind. But what they really mean is people who are custodial staff and so on and so forth. The truth of the matter is that those people are professional staff as well. They have very specific skills and things they have to learn and abilities that they have to have and so on and so forth. And in fact, for those of you who are interested in, you know, certainly sustainability writ large, one of the most interesting experiments that was done is Arizona State University, which you guys may know is one of the leading, with Michael Crow as president, is one of the leading institutions in the country with regard to sustainability. Every aspect of sustainability. You know, they developed within a period of a few years a minor, a major, a master's program, and a PhD program in sustainability. Very, very effective. And they're churning people out right and left who are filling all the jobs that are suddenly developing around the nation to deal with issues of sustainability. A word that nobody knew what it meant, you know, in terms of the way we use it. Nobody knew what it meant. Literally, I would say, a decade ago. It was a pretty misunderstood concept.